Hello, welcome to the July 7th, 2026 Club Cubase livestream. My name is Greg Undo, and I'm the host of the livestream today. If you've not attended a livestream before, how it works is you can ask questions in the live chat field, or simply ask questions in the by sending them in advance to clubcubase@steinberg.de. So you can just enter questions in the chat field or send it via email, again, to clubcubase@steinberg.de. When asking questions, it's always helpful if you could specify which version of the software you're using. So if it's Cubase, you can say I'm using Cubase LE, AI, Elements, Artist, or Pro. What version number, so if you're on version 13, 14, 15, and the operating system that you're currently using. So if it's on Windows or Mac OS, that information is often helpful. We will go through all the questions chronologically as asked, and I may not be able to get through all the questions in what appears to be like a real-time manner with the number of questions that come in. We will go through all the questions chronologically. So if we could avoid asking the same question repeatedly, that would be appreciated. We should have an index of all of the topics discussed in today's live stream pinned to the top of the comments field later this evening or several hours after the live stream ends. And if you wanted to search for topics that have been covered in previous live streams, you could go to cubaseindex.com. And we want to thank Jan from Stockholm for creating that site. You could search through over 2,000 hours and 45,000 different topics there. And quickly navigate to that particular moment in the live stream where we discussed that topic. We have two people that serve as moderators, Agent K and Jazz Dude. So we want to thank them. They're not Steinberg employees, and they do this to make it a better community experience, and we're grateful for that. We'll also extend gratitude to Jazz Dude for his help in coming up with the unofficial Cubase Nation Discord, which is a great resource of information to the Steinberg community. So once again, my name is Greg Undo. I now work for Steinberg directly. It's a nice change. Great to say that for the first time on a live stream. And I'm presenting from just outside of Washington, D.C. area in the United States. And if you're watching this live stream, please feel free to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. And with that, we will get started. Okay, so we see Tim K. Sabertooth Bicycle says he thinks he got like number one. We have Klaus joining from Malmo, sending greetings, I think, from Malmo, Sweden. All right, so we have Jan just giving, joining from Stockholm. And he's giving thanks to Jazz Dude for the fantastic Super Cubase forum, the unofficial Cubase Nation Discord. Wonderful to see Terry Gray joining from Minneapolis, Minnesota in the United States, and Adam Langford from Bedfordshire in the UK. We have Uno Memento says, hello, Greg, from Finland. I emailed you a question last week. If it's too broad a question to cover here, you can email me. Thanks. Let's take a quick look at your question. Memento. So the question was about importing tempo maps and having the zoom, like importing a tempo map into an existing project and have the zoom full settings not work. So question, I'll read it. It says, hope you and your family have a wonderful Independence Day. I have a bit of a strange problem with Cubase 15, Windows 11. It's about using the shortcut Shift F in a certain situation. I'll put here the path I used and encountered difficulties. So I created a new project, created a few tracks with recorded content for a few bars, for example, add a tempo track. So let's say I just created a new project utilizing this. So let's say I'll come over here. Okay, so I activate this project. I'll make sure. Okay, so let's say we have our tempo map. So it says Shift F to It says hit Shift F command for the entire recorded content is displayed in the window. Okay, so I'm going to hit Shift F, and this will do kind of a zoom full. And we see this. It says delete the original tempo track. So let's say if I come here, have this. All right, so our tempo track will still be there even if it is deleted. So we could say remove the selected track. It says import the tempo track from another project. Okay, so I'm going to import the tempo track, and I'm just going to do this through the import tracks from project command, and we will come over to our live streams here. All right, and I'm going to just import the tempo map from a different project here. Okay, and we'll import the events. And I'll say, okay, so now we have a different tempo map. So it says now the tempo track appears in the project. Press Shift F, the view pops up somewhere around the 7,000 bar mark. All right, so when I do this, I'm going to hit Shift F again. And on my system, it actually got much smaller, but I think what it could be is we can see like this tempo node event directly here at the end. So what I think might be causing this to go to the wrong areas might be that perhaps at the end, and if I'm going to guess, let's look at our project duration. So when we come over here, let's go to our project setup, and we'll see what our project duration is under our project setup. So we'll say our project duration is 10 minutes, 10 seconds. So I bet if we switch this to seconds, that this would be right around 10 minutes and 10 seconds. So I think it's going to import just a tempo node right at the very end. So you can see here at 10 minutes. So I think if we look at this imported tempo, that if we come here and delete that tempo event, and now I do a Shift F, that our content will be displayed properly. So I think what it might be doing is the original tempo track made, like when it's importing, may import kind of like at the project endpoint if there's no data. So I would try to just select that, the last tempo node. And you could also just kind of look at it here. We can see kind of all the tempo maps. And if we come directly to this, at this point, hit delete. And now that we have that done, we could hit Shift F. And I think that it will then kind of zoom expectedly. So kind of reading forward, it says, delete the imported tempo track, press Shift plus F. The tracks are now displayed completely with their content as should. So yeah, try just to look at the tempo map and see if there's one event that's hanging out. And it's probably going to be right at the same point in time as the project duration. So I think that's what's triggering it for you, So let me know if that's helpful for you. All right. All right, so we have VS Terra Nova joining from Amsterdam. Always fantastic to see Jazz Dude on. We have Fly V joining from Winnipeg, Canada. All right, so we have hello Greg DC checking in from Bahamas. Can you explain the Melodyne extension in Cubase 15? So if you have a Melodyne product that's going to use with a kind of a communication protocol called ARA, like Audio Random Access. So what this is going to allow you to do is to take your audio file, and when we double click an audio file here in Cubase, we could see it go into the sample editor. Now, when we run this as an ARA extension, when we double click, we could take it into the editing environment of a different application, such as Melodyne or WaveLab or Spectral Layers. So if I want to come right over here, and let's say I put this as a WaveLab extension. So now when I go to double click in the sample editor, it takes me into WaveLab as opposed to the sample editor. So now I can make changes in WaveLab and Melodyne, vocal line, spectral layers here without having to kind of import and export data. What we're able to do is kind of have a two-way communication to have external editors directly here within our program. So that's what kind of if you have the Melodyne, just make sure I have the right one. So the Melodyne extension, so then if you load the Melodyne extension, you can load it directly here, or we could just see your extensions right here listed for all of your projects that are currently using ARA under VST3. So now when you double click, that would take you into Melodyne as opposed to the onboard sample editor. Let me know if that makes sense. Again, great to see you on DC Cunningham. All right, so we see Tim Weinheimer checking in from Mission Viejo. This is get Spectral Layers 13 Pro. So cool, the new functions, so cool. All right, we see Matt Elston joining from the UK. Great to see you on. All right, so we see Danny B6618 just says, hey brother, thanks for being online and being part of the community. All right, so we have Soren joining from Sweden. All right, and also we have Stefan Larson joining from Sweden. Terry Gray is just giving thanks to Jazz Dude for all the work that he does with the live streams. All right, so we see from Dallas LaRue in Las Vegas, it is still asking me for an activation number for the Rev series on startup. There's no way to register it. I've had this for almost a year now. I don't know why I am suddenly having this problem. So you may have just done perhaps a driver update, and with the driver update, it installs the tools for your UR22C. With that includes DSP plugins. So you have the plugins that run on the hardware and software versions that you could use during your mixdown in Cubase. So make sure, one, that you've registered the hardware directly with the, with your My Steinberg account. And then you should have access, once it's registered, I believe that you'll have access to the downloads and activations in your My Steinberg account. So make sure that you see it registered in your current My Steinberg account that you're logged into. And if it's not registered there, you may have installed the software and then it's looking for the software licenses. So let us know. Yeah, I know last time we discussed this on the live stream, you hadn't registered the UR22C yet. So let me know if you've done that. All right, so we have Gene joining from Los Angeles, California. Thanks for being online with us. All right, so we see Flyv just says, I thought the live stream was going to get new employees. So I think even though I have I've switched roles from Yamaha Corporation of America to Steinberg directly now, I'm still going to be doing the live streams. And you see Flyv just says, never stopping you, Greg, just saying, glad you're still here for help. So I'm always really helpful. I'm grateful to be able to help people. All right. So we see Tony Trunzo joining from Australia. Thanks for joining us today. Guys, it's the middle of the night for you. I guess it's like 3:15 in the morning, I think, your time. All right, Jesse Richard asks, Cubase 15 Pro question. When I open up my plugin screen with the E icon, the second menu I open up to scroll down, my waves is locked and I can't see the list. The sample track says the sample is missing. I'm sorry. So this is part of the next question. So it says when I hit the E icon, the second menu I open to scroll down in my waves is locked and I can't see the list of plugins. Screen curtain and scroll. All right, so let's say if we open up, let me just jump to a different project here. Okay, so I think I have one plugin with a lot of one track here. So let's say I click on the E key. I open up the plugin. All right. Says I open up, scroll down, my waves is locked, and I can't see the list of plugins. The screen curtain and scroll. So let me know if it's like when you open up the E button here, if you don't see like plugins, like if they look disabled. So let's say if we come over here and I go to, let's load a vocal chain up, and I have this track selected, and if it looks kind of like this when we go to open, let me know if it looks like this and you can't necessarily get to the particular plugin. What it could be is like if it's kind of locked and you can't really enable or turn the plugin on or off. This could happen with plugins that have higher latency. So what you could do is go to the bottom left-hand corner and try to see if this icon is orange here and try to disable the constrained delay compensation. So what this button allows you to do is to kind of bypass plugins that have higher latencies so that you could record on the active track. So I'm going to just come over here. Let's say I have my input assigned here. So let me just okay. So if it looks along the lines of this when we get to open up your edit channel, I assume that this is going to be on the channel that we see that these are kind of grayed out and they're locked. I can't do anything. Try to just click right over here if this is orange and see if that will turn them on. So basically on the active track, that's going to bypass plugins that exceed a certain threshold of latency so that you could record on the selected track without latency being a huge factor. So try just to come over here and adjust the constrained delay compensation. But let me know if I'm misunderstanding, but I think that should do the trick for you, if I'm understanding correctly. Okay. Okay, so we see from Terry Gray, says, hey Greg, I made a sampler track with an often used kick drum. However, Nuendo 15 can't find the sample. When I tried to use it in other projects, sampler track says the sample is missing. Okay, so let's say if I come over here to the sampler track, so all right, so let me just add. I think I have a. Okay, so let's say I come over here to this sampler track. All right, so this is now empty here. Okay, so I'm just going to drag and drop this sample in. I'll just unmute the track, which would help. Okay, so let's say I drag and drop the sample in. So right now I'm playing it with the sampler track. All right, so make sure that when you do this that you save it as a track preset. So I'm going to come right over here. So we'll say, okay, I want to save a track preset. So we'll call this Terry Gray, July 7th. Okay, so now when we create a sampler track, we could see that when we go into our pool window, so we'll just come right over here, we'll go to our audio, and then we'll see under plugins, our Steinberg, and we'll see our samples. So we can see our synth track just kind of laid out for us directly right there. So this is the name of our file, and that's carried over. So let's say I do a new project at this point. So say, okay, we're going to create a new project. And we will go to, let's say, our media bay. So we're going to go to user presets, track presets, sampler. And now when I come over here, there's the preset that we just made. So let me know if you actually saved the saved it as a track preset here. This will automatically refer to the sample in its existing location. So at that point, you could just simply recall and again, we would come over to user presets, track presets, sampler. And this is the one that we just made. And you can see that as I do that, it's now recalling it's a particular sample, but the sample is from the same location. So let me know if that helps, Terry. Okay. All right, so we see John Costigan saying hello and a big thank you to Greg, Jazzy at AJK, and the invaluable Jan at Cubase Index, and thanks to all of us, everyone that's attending. Let me clear my throat. All right. So we see from Flyv, how do you export an album from WaveLab? Okay, so it could depend on what you want to do for exporting the album. So let's go ahead and open up WaveLab. Sorry, this is my first time with a brand new computer, so I hope all my files are around. Sorry if I had to fumble around, look for some files. Okay. Okay, so let's say I have an album here that's laid out for us, right? So again. She said he was there. While I'm thinking of you, she's everything I. Now, if I was sending it to, let's say, a facility for duplication, if they're making actual CDs, what you could do now is, come right over here, go to the album tab once you're in the montage, and come over here to the album tab, and I will just come over to the functions, and since I have this kind of laid out for me, I will say we will go to we'll go to our album wizard here, and we'll apply the settings. And once we've done that, we've now kind of generated all of the PQ codes for Redbook CD. At this point, if you have a CD burner, still people have lots of CDs. You can come over here. You could write an audio CD. I don't have a CD drive on my new laptop, but we could also come directly over here and we will see that we could also write a DDP image. And what a DDP image is almost kind of like the data file for an audio CD. So you could just simply, write a DDP image. And this is often what you would send to like a CD duplication facility. They don't want an audio CD or the files. They just want the DDP image. So we could just simply have that all laid out for you, and that's the file that you could do. In the DDP, again, is disk description protocol. So that's like the data format that people make audio CDs from. Now we can also just come over here from my montage, and if we choose, we could say let's just export, and we could say we want to do a single file of the whole montage. We could give it a name. So we'll just come over here. And at this point, we can say start. And now we could have, like, if you want to export the whole thing as one contiguous audio file, you could just choose to do your export there. So you could burn it to CD by going into your albums. So let's come again over here. So if you go to functions, go to album wizard, then that will automatically kind of lay out all of the codes. It'll give you 2 seconds of pause by default, which is the default pause time on most CDs. And if you now want to write the CD or DDP image, you could just burn a CD or create a DDP file. And there are players, and with WaveLab, you get a DDP player that's free. So there are kind of freeware DDP players available. But if you wanted to also just turn this into a straight audio file, just get your file menu to export, and you choose a single file, and that will automatically give you, again, that single audio file that is going to be used. So you could do it like that as well. So let me know if that's helpful for you. All right, so we see Tim Weinheimer says, I wanted to see if you could show me in WaveLab Pro 13 how to import a commercial CD tracks into in order, and how to rename the WAV file of the audio montage, and how to switch to audio or rename the WAV file in the montage view. So I don't have a actual. I could get a CD drive connected to my computer for Friday's live stream. I don't have one. I think it's upstairs in a storage closet. So I don't have one handy to do that. But let's say if we are in a montage here, all right, so we would see this as kind of track 1, track 04. And then I think if we just want to, because a lot of times when there are services that will import like the names from the CD, that information isn't actually on the CD. So let's say if I come here, let's see if we, see kind of our track names for us here. Let's see if we can. So from CD here, so let's say let's see if we can just change it in. See if we could change the name here. Because the name of the file, if you wanted it for distribution, if you come over to the metadata, you could edit the CD text. And you could, just come over here and put broadcast wave file information into it. But if you wanted to, let's say, just rename it within the montage, let me see if I could. Okay, so maybe if we come over here, so let's say we want to go to track 2, let's get to your file menu and see if we could just rename. Okay, so that's the montage name. So let's say if I come over here, let's say I have this file. And let's see if we rename just the individual file. All right, so now when we look at the file here, so that's renamed it. So try going, so you can see the name of the file indicated right here. So try selecting the file. So if you're in a montage, you could rename the montage, but if you go to your file menu and then come right over here and just go to rename, or you hit the F2 command, and that will allow you to rename whatever is selected, whether it's an individual file or a montage. But Tim, if you want to send me just a brain cramp email reminder before the live stream on Friday, I would be happy to dig up my CD drive and import an audio CD. Let me know if that's helpful for you, Tim. All right. All right, so we see Benny is in Cyprus for a much needed vacation. All right, so we see from Flyv, will the albums show the names of the songs? So if it's going to be on an audio CD, that information, the name of the songs isn't actually carried over into it's not part of the audio CD specification, but you can have it as far as metadata. But a lot of times what actually happens, like when you put a CD in and it actually pulls up like the artist name, the name of the songs, it's just comparing it against an online database. So none of that information is actually in there, but you can enter in CD text. Some car radios, and I'll show you how to do the CD text. Some like car radios and some CD players, DVD players will read CD text. Not all of them do. It's not a kind of requirement to play back an audio CD, but we'll take a look. So let's say if we come over here, just open that up again. So if you want to do like the CD text again, just come over here. Let's go to our album. We'll go to our functions, to our album wizard. So we create this, and now we can go to this little functions menu. You can edit the CD text. So this way you could say, okay, if you type the performer, you don't have to type it in for every single song. Like a lot of the information will carry over. So this metadata you could have as CD text. Not all CD players read CD text. So just be aware of that. All right. We see Pablo on from Galicia, España. So wonderful to see you on. I was in discussions for a very, very slight chance of doing a Dorco presentation in Galicia, but I don't think it's going to happen. But made me think of you, Pablo. Hope you are well. Tim Weinheimer says Steinberg sounds official. Greg, I like the sound of that. So, yep, as of July 1st, I'm now a Steinberg employee. I had my 34.5-year trial period. So my probationary period was successful. All right, we see Neil Patton on. So wonderful to see Neil. He's an amazing district manager for the West Coast and Southern California for Yamaha. Just a wonderful person. Thank you for joining, Neil. Incredibly talented musician. Hope you had a wonderful 4th of July. All right, so we have Max checking in from Oxford. Thanks for joining us. Okay, sorry, my chat field jumped. Okay, so we see Guy0919. How to disable, not talking about bypass, all plugins on a track together with one shortcut. All right, so I'm going to exit out of WaveLab here real quick. Okay, so let's say I have a number of plugins on one particular track. So I'm going to come over here. So we could do this with the Project Logical Editor. We'll build a new one here, but it's pretty simple to do. So we're going to say, okay, we're going to transform. And we'll say our container type is going to be a track, and we will do it for a selected track. So we'll say, we'll come over here. We'll say property is set to is selected. So we're going to go to our track operation. We're going to select inserts bypass, and we will just toggle. All right, let me just, we'll enable, not inserts bypass rather, but enable insert slot by number. Okay, so we'll say toggle, and I'm just going to add this same command, but for all of these. So we'll go track operation, enable insert slot by number, toggle, and we'll set this to 2. Track operation. And we could just do this for all 16. I'll save it as a preset. All right, so let's come over here, enable insert slot. We want this to be inserts and not sends. All right, so once we kind of do this once, we can save this as a preset. That preset, we can then come over and assign it to a keyboard shortcut. Okay. So we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're going to save this as a preset. Okay, so we see all of these particular tracks here. So now when I apply that, it is not bypassed. So if I come over here, we can see that this lighter scale is bypassed, not disabled. So again, just come right over here, run this macro or this project logical editor preset, and to assign a key command to it, what we want to do is to come right over here. Let's go to our key command area, and you'll see under process, you'll see process project logical editor. So we'll see toggle. I'll just search for toggle all inserts on off. So right there, you could assign a key command, and that would just trigger that project logical editor preset. So you make it once, save it. And if you want to email me at clubcubase@steinberg.de, I'd be happy to share this particular preset in case you don't want to do that, but you could get it done in like 2 minutes probably. So, but if you want the preset, just let me know by emailing me and reaching out to clubcubase@steinberg.de. All right, Pablo just saying he's very happy with the Cubase these days. Love the 1503 update. All right, so we see Pablo just says just one thing: why GUI scaling in Mac OS is really bad. It's perfect in Windows. So I've had good luck with it, so it could depend on, there's a lot of third-party components that don't scale correctly. So, and a lot of that is out of our control. But let's say if we come over here to your Cubase settings and, we go to, I believe we just go to user interface, that you could do your application scaling here. So if we want to do your scaling like so. Now also, one thing that a lot of people don't know is that if we wanted to go to a particular plugin now, so let's say if I want to, if we have like frequencies, a good showcase of this. Some people wanted frequency to be larger, but we could, for the Steinberg plugins and some other third-party plugins that use all the VST3 technologies, we can come over here and also do interface scaling of the plugins. So if you want to go Mr. Magoo size to make that plugin, so every time you open that plugin, it's easier and larger to see multiple parameters. So again, if you just kind of go over here to the right-hand side. So Pablo, let me know if it's like Steinberg components that aren't scaling as you expect or third-party ones. But it's wonderful to have you on. Everyone's always happy when Pablo is on. All right, so we see from Matt Gloss says, this question about aesthetics. How does one import images, icons for VST instruments shown in the VST instrument selection window on the right-hand side of the project window? All right, so if you're over here and we see like your, so let's say, we go to your media and we say, okay, we want to see all of our VST instruments. So let's say, okay, when I come over here, if you don't see a particular instrument, what you could do is just come directly over to the top right. You'll see a little camera. And what this camera will do is it will allow you to take a picture of that plugin thumbnail. So however you have the plugin set up, open up the third-party plugin, click on the camera. And then when you go, then that image that you capture here will automatically be loaded as your VST thumbnail. That will show up here. So if you don't like the look of a default one or you want to change it, just open up the plugin once and then click on the camera in the upper right hand area of the plugin. Okay, so we see Pablo, so the M1 Max. See Jazz Dude just mentioning, he says, I'm used to being the master of my OS. It does exactly what I expect. If not, I modify it, and I do this since Windows 95. So yeah, completely understand. All right, so Terry Gray just says, thanks, Greg. I don't think I saved my sampler track. It's a track preset. Trying it now. So, yeah, that'll make it work for you. All right, Alessandrone just says, just posting to say that the modulators are the best thing Cubase added in the last few years, in my opinion. Yeah. So sometimes if Steinberg is behind on a feature, you'll see that they don't do generally they don't do a me too reaction. They will come out with something that's incredibly thorough and deep and well-intentioned that solves a lot of problems in potential new workflows for people. All right, so we see Roland Stuff checking in from Sussex, the county of Sussex in the UK. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're well. Okay. Everyone's happy Pablo is on. Okay, so we see from Uno Memento, just a question about the about zooming in on the session. Says, Greg, thanks. However, the problem is not solved. I'll send the CPR file. Yeah, if you want to send a CPR file to clubcubase@steinberg.de, I'd be happy to take a look at it for you. Okay, we see Rick from Bratman Studios back with his brother in the waiting room streaming to Club Cubase over 5G. All right, we see Jay from Secret Studios. Says, hi, Greg, I'm working on a project with one Vox and one guitar, but room is maybe Tomb, probably room. Is heavy, can't seem to de-reverb well enough without artifacts. I'm curious as to last version of Spectral Layers de-reverb was updated. So I didn't see any indication that the de-reverb was updated in Spectral Layers. So I think generally all, it may not be mentioned, but a lot of times each of the algorithms will get updated for new functionality. So you could try it, but it wasn't in, like the unmixing was improved from 12 to 13. Like in every version, it's always going to be a little more, like enhancements and improvements, but nothing that was, marketable in that regard that I saw. So, but give it a try. If you're not familiar with that, so if we have a reverb on a track, you can come over here. Let's go to your extension. Let's go to Spectral Layers. So now we double click, and one of the modules in Spectral Layers, and I've had pretty good success with it overall. If you come over here, is you could just de-reverb, so it'll take out some of the ambient characteristics of it. Sometimes also doing a, focusing on the actual, like sometimes when you have too much reverb, the reverb can be more prominent in the far left and far right channels. So sometimes being able to, take even like a let's say if we take the frequency EQ plugin, and what you could do is just come over here and put like a high shelf, but put this on the side. So let's say, okay, I want to go to the side settings, so we could turn this on. And what we could do now at this point is just kind of bring down. So we could say, okay, let's just bring down like the reverb, and you could choose to compress that, like kind of the sides. And this is like the sides. Imagine this is left, center, right. So the sides would be kind of the right and left edges. So sometimes the reverb may be more pronounced there as well. But definitely try the Spectral Layers to start with. And great to see you, Anjay. Hope you had a great 4th of July. All right, so we see from JSki 2002 on a project I save and close out Nuendo 15, then open it up. It's not showing in the recent folder inside of the hub. Sometimes they do, but is this a bug or do I need to delete some projects? Let's give it a try here quickly. So sometimes people may like open up a project, work with it, and then not save it, and it may not show up at the top. I've seen that. But we'll go to open up Nuendo here. Okay, so we'll just create a new project here. Okay. Okay, so let me go ahead and we go to our hub, and we'll see that we don't probably have any recent. We have one recent project. All right, and so we have that, and I'm going to save this. Okay, so I'm going to close this project and see if we go to recents, we can see that it shows up right at the top there. So, one thing that can throw some people off could be like just a dividing line between the templates and the recent. So it sounds like you had gone through that, but make sure, and there's also make sure that the project was saved. Sometimes if there's no change and you have auto save turned on, but let's say the program is sitting idle without any changes, it may not do an auto save if there is no different settings in the project. So just be aware of that. But if you have a project that's misbehaving, please feel free to share it with me at clubcubase@steinberg.de. but it seemed to work as expected. All right, so we have Matt Gloss asks, another question, please. I have a Cubase template set up for orchestra with various sections under folders. How do I disable, for example, the folder that contains the strings? Okay, so we'll come over. I think I have. I'll just do it from. Okay, so let's say we have this. Okay, so the folders generally don't have anything to disable. So what we could maybe do is just to create a folder. So let's say I'm here and I want my strings to be disabled. So let's go ahead and I think we could set up a project logical editor preset. And we basically want to select like the tracks within the folder. So let's see. So we're going to just choose to select. I'll say media type is, or container type is equal to track. And let's set this to property is set to parent object is selected. All right. So we have, so what we did is, so we say container type is equal to track. And what we can do now is come over here and we're going to put in a post process. So let me just make sure we have this set. So let's say if we want to disable those tracks, I'm going to select all the tracks in the selected one here. And we will now choose to, we'll say disable enable track. Okay, so now when I come over, we can say, okay, I have my string track here. So we're going to select all the tracks that are in the string folder and disable them at once. So we'll come right over here, hit this. Now all of the string projects are selected. Now if we wanted to be more specific, so let's come over here. We will enable these tracks. And if you know, like if you're working from a template, and so let's say we want to, we'll save this as a preset. Okay, so let's say now I want it to be like specific names. So I want my woodwinds, for instance. So we could just come over here. We're going to select a, so let's just say the name is woodwinds. Let's see if this works. So let's say I have my string selected now. Okay, if I type woodwinds correctly, that would help. Okay, so let's come over here. So we want to select a folder. track. Name equals, we'll say woodwinds. All right, so when I do this, we can now automatically select our woodwinds track. We come over and say property is set to parent object is selected. All right, so let's say I have my string selected. Now we can say our container type, we want to select folder tracks named woodwinds, and we're going to select all the tracks within that folder track and then disable it. So we'll come over here, see if I... Right. Let's see if we move this and all right, so we're going to just select that. Okay. And we'll try just the media type or the property, say is set to parent object is selected. So let's select this, and it doesn't like that. Let's see if I switch this maybe to or. Yeah, well, let me know if you want it for, I could work on it for Friday. I'll just take one more quick. Okay, so we'll say to, yeah, so, but let me know if that would help. But I could work on that one to get a little more tweaked. But again, you could just say disable tracks in selected folder and come right over here. And the selected folder, all the tracks will be disabled. So again, we're going to do audio. We want to select container type is equal to a track. Okay, let me do track instead and see if we can do the woodwinds. Okay, so I'm going to enable all these. So let's see if we can get this one more time. So I'm using track instead of folder track, and I'll select, let's say, our brass group here. Nope. Well, I'll play around with it, but let me know if you want it like specifically for woodwinds, brass, percussion, if you want those to be disabled as opposed to the selected track. It seems like it should work, but I'll play around with it some more for Friday. Okay, let's go to our next question. All right, so we see Matt Gloss. John Koskin is glad that Matt Gloss asked that question. All right, we have Bob Smith joining from New Jersey. See, Tim K is cat buddy is waving a paw hello to my cat Steven and Stella and other pets that are nearby. All right, so we have Peter checking in from Montreal. All right, he says where we woke up to clear blue skies and a glorious 31 degrees Celsius. All right. Okay, sorry, my chat field jumped. Okay. All right, so you see from Terry Gray says, hey, Greg, I checked and I made the track presets, my sampler track. I think the issue is that I couldn't find a sample when I put the sampler track in a template. Any thoughts? So once you have, so let's say if we come over to, okay, so I'll just do a new project and we'll save it as a template. Okay, so let me come over. Let's find our sampler track. So we'll go to our user presets or track presets to sampler. Drag this over. And now, so generally, templates, don't necessarily have like an audio path. It's kind of, your path can be a bit agnostic. So let's say we have our sample track here. Now I'm going to save this as a template here. So we'll give it a name. Okay, I'm going to close this project. Let's open up. So we'll come over to templates and we'll show user templates. All right, so let's just open this up now. Now we're going to give it what folder we want this into. I'll put it into a new folder. All right, so now the sample is automatically recalled within the template. Something to be aware of also, Terry, is if you go to the pool, Control or Command plus the letter P, or go to your media menu. So you can see that we have like the sampler track here. We have our synth bass. And if we look at the location, this is probably going to be in our original location here. One of the things that you can do is one thing that you could try to do also is just to right click in your pool window and you could say prepare archive. And so if we look at our position here, so it may automatically work, but if it's not finding the sample from the template within the template, try coming over here and do a prepare archive, and that could update the path. So we can see that the path has been updated, and that way the sampler is in the sampler file is kind of stored within the project, and that could be updated for every time that you use, so that that sample is within the project audio file folder. So when you open up that track preset, it's going to recall it in its original location. When you start, that sample is recalled with the template. If you want to back up the project with all the samples, just come right over here and choose to do a prepare archive, and that will move all of the sample content so that it is all within one particular folder. So all the samples will be exported directly there as well. So let me know if that's helpful. Okay. All right, reading through comments here. Okay, so you see, I don't need to know how to get the names into the montage with Album Wizard. I already figured that out. It's more to import them in the same order as they are on the CD that I'm importing it into. So sometimes it may be, so let's say if we are in WaveLab, and I could be misunderstanding, sorry about that. But sometimes if you have like 11 tracks on your CD, it may go like 1, 1, 1. It may go 1, 11, 12, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. So let's say in this instance, we come over. So I don't know if, so let's say we go to our album wizard here, apply. So I'm not sure if you kind of just change the order here on a CD. So I think, and I'll check, I'll get a CD that has more than, but if it has like 13 songs, it may go track 01. I'm not sure if sometimes computer systems will go track 01, track 11, track 12, track 02, sometimes with the order. But if you want to send me more detailed description, Tim, or send me an email, I'd be happy to kind of get it set up with the CD drive for Friday's live stream. All right. All right, so we see from Neil Patton, my Yamaha colleague, says had a great 4th, spent at the park, of course. Saturday in the park is a great way to spend the 4th of July. I did the same, so but glad you had a great time. And yeah, Neil is an amazing colleague of mine, who I will miss interacting with more at Yamaha, but I will still be working with him. All right, Pablo just says, only product from Steinberg that I don't use, Dorico. So we could change that. Start with Dorico SE, and then you could work your way up. See, John Koskian says, he did 27 years as a contractor before being hired for 6 years, and also 11 minutes as a university professor. Sounds good. Good experience. All right, so we see from Guy0919 says, thanks a lot, Greg, for showing this preset. Very helpful. So we see from Pablo about the scaling, says just Steinberg plugins. Greg, if you have a screenshot you want to share with me, please feel free to shoot it over in an email. I'll be happy to take a look. We see it does, but all controls are pixelated. It's uncomfortable to see, especially when you compare on Windows. They look great, for example, Magneto. All right, so let me just open up Magneto since Pablo had mentioned that. All right, so let me just try the interface scaling here. Try different resolution. So I think, like some of the Magnetos, it's supposed to be like the intention here. Some people think that it looks fuzzy, but as you work on it, this is to kind of give you almost like the 3D feel of a knob. I can see where some people might think, but kind of, let's say we're using this. But I think that this is supposed to be like a textured knob that has like not where it's not smooth, but has, you know, so I think that, you know, but let me know if that's what you're seeing, Pablo. But I think that's kind of the intentional design to give it kind of the potentiometer a, you know, kind of like a graded feel where it's not completely smooth. All right, John Koskinen says he's happy when Pablo is on. All right. All right, Matt Gloss says, thanks, Greg, for your answer regarding using the camera to capture an image of the VST thumbnail icons. Yeah, so what I do is, you know, like on my personal studio, I have kind of a large number of plugins. And when I install new plugins, and I have a dedicated VST plugin folder collection. So, you know, whenever I get a new plugin, I go into my VST plugin manager, I put it into my personal plugin collection, then I open it up, and the first thing I, you know, make sure that the plugin's working, I take pictures. Every time I install plugins, part of the installation process, it's a two-step process for me. I will, you know, make sure that it's organized correctly in my VST plugin manager, and then open the plugin. And as you take the plugin, you just simply come over, you know, to the plugin and then take a snapshot of it right there. Then that will show up. So that way, like, you don't have to do 400 plugins at once if you kind of do it incrementally. All right, so we see from 54 Beatmaker says, can we have VST instruments, VST effects, and media bay in separate tabs in the right zone? Currently, they're all under the same media tab, so switching back and forth interrupts the workflow. All right, so when we come here, so like if we're here, we can say VST effects, click on the home, and then you can say VST instruments, home. So, and I think if you just see if there's like the back key. So let's say if I do, but I think that there could be a, so let's see if we could do the back key. Let's go to my Cubase key command. All right, so say if I do this, I assign a keyboard shortcut for that to the back for focus. So let's say if I'm here, but you know what I do, you know, because there's already, you know, numerous tabs, but what I do is just kind of come and go hit the home key again, and then you quickly kind of navigate back and forth. So even if we're kind of deep into your VST instruments here, and you wanted just to go to a VST effect, click there, then your VST effects. So maybe use the back key to kind of quickly navigate between those. And by the time you do that, it is, I don't think it's any more button pushes than selecting a different tab here. So while you're in the media, just maybe try, if you're not utilizing the back or the home key, you know, that might speed up your workflow for you. And let me just see if there's maybe a keyboard shortcut for home. All right. So let's see if I hit my home key here. Let's say this is the active window. Yeah. So try to click there and see if you can navigate, maybe utilize the home key function there. All right, wonderful to see Michael Teams from Weatherford, Texas joining us. Okay, so we see from John Costigan, it says, hi Greg, I downloaded the final version of Cubase SX3 for my old Office XP box. How do I proceed to register or authorize it? I haven't installed it yet. Thanks a bunch. So if you have a Cubase 11, like USB-E licenser, or anything past, from SX3 or later. So if you connect that USB-E licenser onto your XP system, at that point, it will read the license from like your Cubase 11, Cubase 10 version, and SX3 will open with a later Cubase license from version 3 through version 11 before it's migrated to Steinberg licensing in version 12. So just connect your USB-E licenser. If you've installed the program on your XP machine, you should be able to just connect the USB-E licenser. The license is already authorized if you're running Cubase from that E licenser, and then open up, and then you could save your .all, .arr files as .cpr files. So let me know if that makes sense. All right, so we have 3/4 of Hot Mess on with Pablo and Michael Teams. Need to get Gareth on. We have the full ensemble. All right, wonderful to see Sable Winters checking in from Bay Area, California. Looks like I'll be out there for a show in November, Sable. If you're around, go out to the Music Expo, which is now the Mono show. All right, Jazz Dudes received 1 gallon of Texas Fresh Strawberry Ice Cream. Okay. Sable's got an ice cream as well. All right, so Matt Gloss says, thanks, Greg. Yes, please enable disable folders for each orchestral section would be ideal, with hopefully a macro for each. If that's not too much to ask, I will tune in for Fridays. Yeah, I think we should be able to do it. I thought that what I did should work, but sometimes the order can make a big difference. But we'll go ahead and I'll get those prepared for Friday's live stream. All right, Michael Teams is happy that Pablo is on. Give him 1 gallon of nougat ice cream. All right, we see Gerald Ely joining from Martinez, California. All right, Don M1547. Hello, Greg. Can Groove Agent SE5 be used for drum replacement / I guess maybe augmenting on existing drum multi-track, Cubase 11 Pro, Windows 11? So yeah, I'll show you how to do that. So it could go to any drum machine. Steinberg is really nice with that regard. So I'm going to have, let's say, my Maple kit here in Groove Agent. Okay, and let's say I have multi-track drums going on up here. So let's take a listen. So let's say I want to replace this kick with another kick. So all you have to do is double click on our kick file. This will launch the sample editor. We're going to go to hit points. We could choose that we want to edit the hit points. Let me clear my throat real quick. And when we do that, what we want to do is we're going to edit the hit points. We want to kind of set the threshold so that we're not incorporating other drum tracks that are bleeding. We could adjust our sensitivity here. So if we solo our drum track here, see we're not catching the snare. So our hit points are set up. So we're double click here and we'll see this little create tab. So I have my drum track selected here. So we're going to go to create and we will say MIDI notes. So we could have it be a fixed velocity or a dynamic velocity. So we'll come here to, and I'll say, let's put all these MIDI notes on at C1. So now when we go to listen to it, we have our kick. And I did it on this selected track. So I had this track selected. And now we are triggering our sounds in Groove Agent SE5 or SE6 or any drum machine. So if I want to mute the kicks from audio, and if I want to do the snare, I could kind of basically just do the same thing. So let's go to my snare track. And you can do it even while it plays. So we'll come over here and let's create MIDI notes, and I want this to be D1. Then I could select my snare, make it a little louder. So if I want my kick to be louder, I want to tune. So again, I could just come over here to my snare. Now, if I wanted those kicks that are coming from Groove Agent here to play with the original audio, if we mute Groove Agent, you hear the originals, now augmented by the MIDI that we extracted from those parts and placed onto our Groove Agent track. So again, just come over, double click, go to the hit points, edit the hit points, set the threshold and intensity correctly, click on your little create tab, and then make MIDI notes. And once you do that, you're asked if you want to create a new track or place it on the selected track. I had this track selected, and then you could do your replacement just that easily. No other special tools needed. See, Pablo says he used Dorco, the free version, one time. So, all right. You see, Jazz Dude sharing some links on some drum editing tutorials. Thanks for doing that. All right, Michael Teams asks, howdy Greg, I opened a MIDI project. The issue is using Rasta. The last two tracks were missing some pieces of the parts, not all of the parts, just some. They were on the track 1 and 2. So make sure, one, so if you have, so let's say if I come over here, let me know if, like, when you are on top, So let's say if I have like these MIDI parts here, and I drag this event, so if the parts aren't visible, let me know if the parts aren't visible. This is issue. The last two tracks were missing some pieces of the parts, not all the parts, just some. They were on the track, and I had to change voices to get the track to work properly. Now back to normal. Any ideas? And so if they're on two different tracks, all right. So say if I come here, let me make a duplicate of this. So I wonder if it's on two tracks, and let's say they're both going out to. Let me just come here. I'll just do a Halion Sonic quickly. I don't think I have Rasta on yet. I'll get it installed. All right, but let's say if I'm here and I add a MIDI track. All right, so let's say, if we're here, we have our Halion Sonic, and I have an instrument loaded here. And if I have notes that are here, and let's say I have these same notes, on a different track, if this track is being sent to, let's say, MIDI channel 2 instead. So if I come here and I could play my keyboard, and even if this is kind of set to the same instrument, you may not, this could, if this is going out to a different MIDI channel, check to see that the MIDI channel is the same. So if the port, so let's say I'm going to come here, let's just add a MIDI track. We'll do that. So we want it going out of Halion Sonic. So I have, if this channel is set to channel 2, so now if I select this, I don't hear anything because it's sending it. Check to make sure that this track, that the MIDI channel is being sent to somewhere where there's a destination. So maybe if you have it on two tracks and they're both, one of them isn't playing, maybe those particular notes, and you could also just select the notes here. So let's say we select the notes and you'll see the MIDI channel. Make sure that all the notes are going to the correct MIDI channel on Rasta, and see if maybe it's just a MIDI channel message when it's on a different track. It's maybe going to MIDI channel. So let me know if that makes any sense, Michael. Okay, Michael Teams wants people to whack the like button. All right. All right, so we see Uno Momento sent CPR file. So I'll check it out after the live stream today. Thanks for sending that over. All right, so we have a question from Pablo. Can we, through Project Logical Editor, add selected tracks to carpet track with group option enable and rename it in a single action? Maybe a folder track with group option and rename. All right, so let's see if we could do that. actually just have. All right, so I think in this project I don't have here. Sorry, there already. So let me just revert. Okay, so I think we want to take all. I'm going to take all these tracks out of their current folder. Okay, and I'm going to delete this existing folder track. Okay, so now we have, I want to take all these drum tracks, send it to a folder with group channel and rename it. All right. So let's see what happens when I come over here. Just get the okay, so let me just add. All right, so I'm just going to assign a keyboard shortcut to that, and let's see if it allows us to rename it. Okay, all right, so let's make it into a macro. I think we could do this. All right. All right, so now they're not in a folder, so let's build a macro. Okay, so we'll make a new macro. So we're going to say let's add this command, and then we want it to go up. So I'm going to hit the up arrow. We're going to navigate up. Let's see if there's a rename track. Okay, rename first selected track. Okay, so let's see if this works. So I'm going to take all of these tracks here, add it to a new folder with group channel. We're going to navigate up to that selected channel and then rename the first selected track. All right. Sorry about that. Let me resize it so we could watch it. All right, so let's go ahead and run the macro, and now we could type in our name. So once again, so this macro is going to be 3 steps. So we're going to do project, move selected tracks to new folder with group channel. We're going to then, these will all be selected. We're going to navigate up and then rename the first selected. So I'm going to select these particular tracks here, run the macro, and type in Pablo. And looks like that is now renamed the folder. So let me know if that is what you wanted to do, Pablo. I assume maybe carpet track and folder track maybe might be same, but let me know if I misunderstood. Okay, we see Michael Marshall joining from Somerset, UK. Thanks for being online with us. Great to have you on and part of the community. All right, John Costigan just saying, thanks, Greg, for the SX3 tip. It all made perfect sense. All right, Bratman Studio asks how to add a sample to Padshop and manipulate it for groovy sounds. Okay, so let's just add. We'll have a Padshop sound here. All right, so I'll just open up a preset here. So, all right, so we'll come over. All right, so let's find a sample. So what Padshop does, and we could think of this as, if we were to make an analogy, we could think of Padshop as being like, you know, we could think of if we're working with our sound, and we could think of our sound as a piece of glass as our sample. And if we kind of break glass down chemically, we could realize that, you know, glass is basically, you know, a bunch of small pieces of sand or grains at the granular level. So when we want to manipulate a sound, but kind of do it from at the sand level of a piece of glass, that's what we're doing with a granular synth like Padshop. So it's going to take a sample and break it down. So one of the great things with Padshop is you could just take kind of any sound. Let's jump home here. Let's get to our loops. Let's just find maybe a sound effect. So let's come over here. We'll clear. All right, so say I want that. So all I have to do to add the sound into Padshop is literally just drag it over, and now. And then you could come over here. You could set the number of grains that you're working with. So take an existing preset and just drop. So again, if you want to just kind of take. So take that sound in. So if I want to take that sound into a completely different preset, so just take a preset here, drop into sound. So this one will kind of play the sample backwards. But to get audio in, just literally drag and drop the sound like so. So you can just take that and replace it with this sound. All right, so let me know if that's helpful for you, Rick. And you can watch all of Gary Gibbons' videos. He does amazing work with Padshop. He's a genius with it. All right, Amado Solo. How do I go about hot swapping an audio file which I've already chopped up? Okay, so all right, let me just jump back here. Okay, so let's say I have like an audio file here. All right, so we will come over to, let's say, our hit points. Just make sure nothing else is selected. Sorry. Okay, so let's say if I have like these slices, so I'm not sure if you want to replace the entire file. So let's say I have, I've now created, just take it out of musical mode here. So let's say I've sliced the audio. How do we go about hot swapping an audio file which I've already chopped up? So I'm not sure if you want the chops to, all right, so maybe it's not slices, but let's say if I have this file, and let me just set my, okay, so let's say if we have a file here and I've chopped up a file and I want it to be replaced. Let's see if I just drag it over. Let me just find something a little more appropriate. Okay, so I'm going to drag this over the file. And we said, do you want to modify all events to refer to the same sample material? So this is one audio file that's been sliced. Let's see if it's carried over. All right, so even though this was originally, we'll take a listen to the original file here. So let's listen to this. All right, so we have kind of like a rock drum loop. I am going to come over here and let's cut some of the file. So I'm going to just cut out different sections of the file. So when we listen to this now, we have so now I'm going to just drag this file over, hold down my shift key, And as we do that, so let's hold down the shift key again. We'll take it to the beginning of the first section that we want. And then it will say, do you want to modify all vents that refer to the same audio material? So we'll say yes. So that's been chopped up in the rock loop, and now we play back. Let's listen to our drum loop in entirety here. So now I've chopped out sections of that drum loop, and now when we play this back, we can now just have those sections of the drum loop automatically fit into those particular sections. So let me know if that's kind of what you want to do with that, or if I'm misunderstanding. It's from Amado Solo. Rick just saying Jazz Dude's always on top of it. He's so good. Appreciate everything he does. All right, so we Chatfield jumped. All right, so you see Jazz Dude just commenting that Padshop is very sophisticated. We'd start with the presets and list all of them. If something you got into, try to understand how it works, and change for another sample is the first really complex granular synth. I even bought it separately when it was Padshop 1. It was 1990s, now free. So I think Padshop came out maybe with version 6 or 7 with Cubase. So I don't think it was back in the 90s. And then it came out with, I think there was Padshop 1, Padshop that was included, and then you could spend an extra $10 or $20 to add the ability to drop your user samples into it. That was an upsell for $20, or you could buy it separately, but then that was implemented directly into Cubase with the sample dragging in. All right, Zephaniah Yasharabla says, hey Greg, is there any way I can tune the drums in Halion Sonic 7 using Cubase Pro 13 on PC? Okay, so let's give it a try. We may be able to through kind of note expression editing. All right, so let's add an instrument track. So it's not as easy as a dedicated tool such as the drum machine or Groove Agent, but let's see if we can get it to work, because there's obviously some great sounds in there. All right. All right, let's come over here. Okay, so let's say we have okay, so let's just make a quick one measure part. Okay, I'll switch it over to the drum editor. You see this going out to the right. All right, let's hit. Oh, let me do it on the correct octave here. Sorry. Okay. All right, so let's say if we have this. Okay, so let's see if we go into our key editor. So let's say I want to change the pitch of my snare. So I'm going to come over here. So usually when we do a pitch bend information is global. So if I am playing this, I could use pitch bend to pitch everything up or down. But let's see if I come over to, let's say, our very first snare hit here. So let's say, okay, so I'm here. So I'm going to double, let's go to a little function in the editor here where we could see all right, and I'll just make this a little larger and we'll open up kind of our note expression. Let me just see if it's, you may have to just add it. All right, so we'll show our note expression data and okay, so you can see this little E icon here. Okay, so let's see if we now come over to note expression. So if we're doing this in Halion, we could come over here to our note expression and let's say we want to adjust tuning. So now when this is turned on, when I double click, I can just, let's see if I could just apply a tuning to these notes here. So this note is the same, but we could just change the pitch. So now we just, once this is turned on, we could select in our note expression. Then we could double click. This opens up the note expression editor. And we could, once we have tuning, we could just have different tuning for each note. Notice that the kick doesn't change pitch. The hi-hat doesn't change pitch. It's just the snare. So we're applying a pitch bend directly to just the snare tracks. So if I wanted to double click here, say, okay, I want this maybe up a little more. So that way you could tune each drum that you want directly using kind of note expression. If you wanted to do that, you could also just say, okay, I want all my snares to be down to the same pitch, or all my hi-hats. So you can do individual tuning, even individual tuning at the note level, whereas most MIDI devices will be global for like doing pitch bend data. So let me know if that's helpful for you, Zephaniah. All right, so you see Michael Team says this question with the Rasta says 2 different tracks, 2 different parts, just pieces played out of each track. The track showed all the parts. The fix was changing voices and then back to the original voice. Yeah, I mean, if you have a part of the project that you want to share with me, Michael, please feel free to send it over to clubcubase@steinberg.de. Excuse me 1 second. All right. All right, so we see Peter Raymond just says late to the party from Winnipeg. So we're just glad you're here. Thanks for joining us, being part of the community today. Hope you had a great Canada Day for everyone in Canada last week. All right, so we see a comment from Jazz Dude on Padshop. Says, but once you understand the principles, you could choose the best samples and drag them in. I once did an Enya voice sample and had great results for like 8 years ago. So, all right, so we see Pablo says, woohoo, the magic Greg did it again. Revelation of the day. All right, we see Graham Witcher joining from Oxford, England. Thanks for being online with us today. Pablo is saying, let's do some macros. All right, so we see that there's another heat wave going on in the UK. Sorry to hear that. We had over the weekend like 104 degrees for our Independence Day. A little too hot to do too much. All right. So you see from Fox Andrews says, hello, hi all from Ireland. Hi Greg, is there any way via Project Logical Editor otherwise to show all individual tracks but keep their parent folders hidden? I don't think so. I think if, like the folder track's always going to be, let's see if we can take a quick look, because I think the folder track will, is the container for all of the other events. So let me just come over here. I'll start from like that template. So yeah, like if you want to see this track and this track and this track together, we could say we'll come over. And we can say show selected tracks. And we still kind of get the folders. And I think if we hide the folders, if we go to the visibility, that those particular tracks also will get hidden. So I think that the folders, if will always be, will always be, visible. So because that track is within the particular folder track. So I don't know of a way to do that, but I was thinking that I was doing some editing over the weekend. I was thinking about that as well. Maybe a way to kind of just hide the folder track so you can edit between multiple tracks a little easier. But I don't know of a way currently of doing it. Might be able to make the folder tracks to be like a small track height. But I don't think there's a way of, hiding the folder track itself will hide the track within the folder. And thanks for joining us from Ireland. All right, so we see Beverly Beatty just popping in to say hello, and she's going shopping for a new cowbell today. Sounds like fun. You're going to Long McQuaid in Vancouver. All right, so we see from Amado Solo says the slices. This is back to our previous question on like replacing the drum loop. It says the slices would reference a different file, which I may have processed differently. Okay, so let's give it a shot here quickly. Okay, so we'll come over here. Let's just go back. All right, so let's say we have our rock loop here. And let's apply different processing on it. Okay, so I'm going to take this file over here. Let's put on like some processing. We'll put just a 2 big reverb on it. Okay. Okay, so let me just duplicate that. All right, so let's say we have different processing. So I'm going to do a quick render in place on this file so that we apply the okay, so now we have, let's say, our rendered file here, if I did it right. Apparently not. Let me just okay. I'm going to render this one. Sorry. Okay, let's do our channel settings this time. Okay, so we have, let's say, our dry file here and our rendered file here. All right, so let's say I want to chop this up. And usually if we just kind of come over here and drag this over. All right, so I'm going to just go to the file. Let's see, I don't think if I just drag this over top that it will replace the individual ones. Let's get to our file browser and come over here. Let's get to documents, projects. All right, so this is our rendered file. So now if I drag it from the media bay over, so now when we play just the sections here, I'll mute this track. Let's come over here. Let's see if this is. See if that's disabled or not. But so like, you know, dragging this over to the files will replace it. So if you drag it from here, you could take the processed file and replace the other one. Also, what some people will do in this case a lot of times is maybe, you know, utilize track versions. So you could have like one track version that's processed, one that's not processed, and be able to kind of go back and forth between those two. But let me know if that's helpful. All right, so we see Pablo just saying maybe the macro design for image says it works. Thanks a million, Greg. So you're welcome. Thanks for joining us today. All right, reading through comments here. All right, so you see Pablo just saying Greg needs more reverb. All right, you see Jazz Dude sharing a link on creating 5 iconic reverbs with the Revelation plugin that Dom did. Thanks for sharing that. All right, so let's go through a question that someone had mailed in. All right, so we got a question: how to change the pitch of a sample in real time with the MIDI keyboard. Okay, so let's take a look. So let's say I have an example here. And I'll just revert this from where we were. Okay, so let's say I have an audio file, let's say, and the musician just played kind of a single note. So let's say we have like a drum pattern here. And let's say we came here and there's just a single bass note here. want want to do is use the sampler track to take that one note, that one single note, the monophonic note, and have that switch to be different samples. So what I did is I dragged that sample down into the sampler track, and I placed just a note that's going to be the length of the entire part. So just one note. So when I dragged that in, I assigned it, it's an A note, and I assigned it to be as the root note to be on A1. So when I play the sample, I could come over here and, I could just say, okay, let's mute the audio track. And now when I play the sample, we can see that when I play lower notes, it gets longer. It doesn't stay in time. So if I play a higher note, it's going to speed up. So lower notes slow down, higher notes play faster, and this will be. Now we notice that every time that I play the sample, that it actually starts playing the sample from the beginning of the file. So let's say I want to first fix so that when I play different pitches, that it plays the same time. So I'm going to just enable audio warp. So now when I play different pitches, but now you see that when I play a different pitch, it starts playing that sample from the beginning. But maybe I wanted to, like as it's playing, to change it. So I'm going to place this sample into monophonic mode. So I'm going to click right here and put it onto monophonic mode. And I'm going to set this to continuous so that when it gets to the end of the sample, if I still want the sample to continue to play, it'll just kind of start over again. And just to the right of the monophonic button is this legato mode. So let's say we listen to our original file here, and we wanted to kind of just make it more interesting by playing different notes. So it's all the same note. If you're not sure of the chord changes, that's fine. But now what I want to do is just come over here, and if we look at the keys here, I'm going to play. So once I put it into continuous mode, I put it into audio warp. We have different algorithms for audio warping, and place it into monophonic mode and legato. So now when I play, I could just trigger, and I'm going to hold the key down and just press the next key. So just hold that one key down. So you can just see, look at the keyboard at the bottom. And then you could just kind of sequence and just kind of play different notes from your MIDI keyboard in real time and repitch that sample as you see fit. So again, just drag the audio file. So if you want to come here and just say, let's add a sampler track, we'll add an empty one. Drag the audio file down. We could normalize the file if you want. We want to put it into audio warp. You could try the Spectral HD algorithm, set the root note so that matches. So we'll say A1 and put it into monophonic mode and legato. And now as you play, you can just simply and you can even get different dynamics. So very easy way of taking something that was just one single note and being able to reshape it musically using the monophonic legato mode in the sampler track. All right, let me jump back, see if we have more live questions. We see Pablo just saying Simon. So yeah, that was the Simon Phelps drums, which are always amazing to listen to. So if you haven't played around with the Simon Phelps, get your octobons, way too many toms, even get your kicks, you get 3 snares. So if you wonder how Simon Phelps gets so many different sounds, uses 3 snares, and then you could even come over here to the kicks and blend it with different samples. So if you want to have different samples that go along with it, so you don't have to layer it externally, you could just do it all right here directly in the Simon Phelps kits. So there's a vintage kit, there's a Simon Phelps studio drums, and Simon Phelps jazz drums. So all right. All right, so we see AF Major Production. Hello, Greg. Can you please help me set my Dolby Atmos or tell me what I'm doing wrong when I select a track and select create objects from selected tracks? Nothing happens. I use the add objects box. Okay, so let's take a look. All right, so one, make sure that you're at 48K. You make sure that your buffer is set to 512 samples. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. So let's say I have just a guitar part here. So we want to go to your project menu, to project setup, make sure your project's at 48K, go to your studio menu to studio setup, and we want to make sure that the buffer size for your audio interface is at 512 samples. Okay. So what I do and what I found the easiest way to approach this is to use the ADM project. So the ADM authoring under the project menu. So we'll come right over here. We'll go to our setup assistant for Dolby Atmos. All right, and generally just kind of check all of these options and use the default settings. All right, so I'm going to monitor using binaural. So if you're listening with headphones, that you can hear this. So we set this up as binaural. Okay. And as we go to our project here, we'll open up our panner. So this will automatically add all of the tracks. So when we come over here, let's just say, okay, let's take our panner and I'll automate this. If you have headphones on, you're probably hearing this binaurally. Go to the side and behind you. So if I want to automate that, and I could just click right over here. So let's automate that setting. Now if I want to change the height, so I'm not sure if you tried just to use the, from the project menu to the ADM authoring setup, but that will automatically kind of place all the tracks correctly so that you could do a Dolby Atmos project. So let me know if that's helpful from you. But I think if we add other tracks, I'll just pop over here. So let's pop over to our media. I think if we come over to the So let's say I have these two tracks selected. Let's come over here. I haven't done this in a while, sorry. I think if we go right into here, I always do it through, have all of the tracks set up. So, but okay, so we'll create objects from selected tracks. We just remove this. All right, so let's say we have I'll just copy over a couple of all right, so let's come here, we select this, and from our ADM authoring, we'll just, under the project menu, and now we'll just come right over. So let's say we are in this file here. So, but yeah, that's how you could do it right there from the ADM authoring setup. All right. All right, so we see from Terry Gray, any chance of splice integration in the future? There's always generally you don't talk about future stuff until it's actually released. but I believe that they do have a current VST kind of browser plugin that you could use. I know a lot of people use that. So, all right. So we see from Pablo, it just says the Marco Miniman's drums were recorded in Simon's studio as well. So yeah, I think my friend Bobby Summerfield actually built that studio for Simon, but I think he lost his house in some of the he lost his house in some of the LA fires, and I think he may have lost his studio. I know we were able to send him some new licenses to help him out. But yeah, it's just really a shame. But yeah, but great. All those sample sets are really phenomenal, and Marco Miniman stuff as well. All right, John Koskian is just reminding people, in case you forgot, like me, please press the like button as it improves the functionality. All right. Let's get to another question that was mailed in. It says, I just started using Cubase 15 and got my drum kit routed with multi-outputs. Each of the drums are appearing in my mix console, but not in my project window. How do I fix this? I've already tried sync project and mix console to no avail. Okay, so let's say if we come here and we add an instrument, we'll just do it with Groove Agent. Okay, so let's say we just have, as we're listening to our pattern here, I'll just do it on a non-Atmos project. Be easier. Okay, so let's say we have a beat agent kit. So let's say if I'm playing this particular pattern here. All right, and let's say I want to assign these two different outputs. So I'm going to come right over here. So we're going to select our kit and say, okay, the kick is going out of, let's say, plugin output 2. I want this to go out of the same plugin output 2. Let's see, not output 3. And let's say our snares, we will send it to output 4 with our clap. And let's send this to output 5. All right, so let's say now we go to the mixer and we can see that we have multiple outputs going directly here. All right, so we see these in the mixer, but you may not see them in the project window until you actually go to like the Groove Agent kit here. And at this point, you'll see this show hide automation. And now we go to the right kit this time. We will now see all of your Beat Agent outputs. So as we play the particular pattern, so now we get to say, okay, well, my snare group, my hi-hat closed. So you may not see the outputs in the project window until you click in the lower left-hand corner of the track to open up kind of the automation. Then you see the automation lanes and the tracks for each of the multi-outputs from Groove Agent. All right. All right, reading through comments here. Yeah, we see that Pablo is sad to hear about Simon Phillips' studio, so it was a pretty bad fire. We see Jazz Dude just says, no idea who Simon is, watch this. So yeah, Simon's an amazing drummer who probably can best straddle the worlds of kind of rock, pop, and jazz drumming and have kind of equally high regard in all of them. Super nice guy. I saw him, I think, in 1989 touring with The Who, so I'm a big John Entwistle fan, so Simon has shared all sorts of great John Entwistle stories with me. All right, so we had another question mailed in. Hi, Greg. Is it possible to retroactively correct incorrectly in a live concert recorded piano notes, chords in Spectral Layers 13? How? Thanks. It can be tough to do, so let me just I think I have an example that we could maybe share. All right, so let's say if I have and I'll just take a small section of, let's say if we have more chords coming up. All right, so let me just take this selection here. And I'm going to take the two piano parts and let's just bounce. All right, let's get to our render settings. We'll mix down to one file. All right, so now we have kind of like a stereo piano file. All right, so let's come in here. So I would say Spectral Layers is, you could do a tremendous amount, but it's not really set up to break apart individual notes within a piano chord. So, but let's take a look at what we could attempt to do here. And everyone, Spectral Layers 13 was released just last week. So if you haven't played around with that, make sure you get a chance to check it out. All right. So if it's just like, one flubbed note, so let's say if we're kind of listening, so we'll just, all right, so let's come over and I'll just make this full screen. So let's say this is a bad note here. So let's just go and select like all right, so I'm going to use the magic wand. So I think if we come over here, All right, so let's say if I want to kind of grab that particular note, and we can come over here and adjust kind of the select kind of the overtone series. So let's go ahead and just listen. So if we select like just one particular note, and then we have the option for one of the options for the overtone series. Okay, so we'll select like, so we could kind of select a particular note here. All right, and now in the options, I think if we, once we have that selection, is we could do kind of the harmonics selection. So as we select here, we could also just choose to select kind of the harmonic overtone series for particular notes. And then you could kind of pitch it up, but it's not really, it's more for kind of extracting. But depending on the performance, like if you may have to unmix the piano from a live performance. You might be able to do it, but it could be a little arduous. It's not kind of the intended task to, take a note within the piano from C to C sharp, because it's actually kind of catching over all of the overtone series. But I think once we have this now, if we have that, we could maybe just, so let's say we selected, let's go ahead and select this again. I haven't really had a chance to dive into 13. So let's say we have that particular piano note. Then selecting the harmonics of a particular note, and at that point being able to like just change the pitch up. So let's see if we can. So we'll do pitch shifting on this. You could preserve performance, and let's just go up like a semitone. So you could take the one piano note and, take out just the semitone of that, so that you could, and then take that selection and move it up. So depending on a scenario, you could probably get it to work, but it's not like the purpose-built solution for that. All right. All right. So we have Da Vinci Girl joining from Bochum, Germany. Thanks for joining us today. All right. So you see question, is there no way to use quick controls for the slice section of this sampler? All right. So let me just go back to our sampler track here. Okay, so I'll just revert this quickly here. Okay, so let's just open up my sampler track here. Okay, so let me know if you want to use the quick control to actually, let me get my controller connected here quickly. Sorry about that. Okay, so let me know, do you want to just turn the slice on with a quick control? So I don't think, so let's see if I come here, let's see if we could adjust. Yes, it doesn't look like it gets, the slice control is controllable. So sorry about that. Let me just see if we go into, I mean, I've always approached it for these types of selections. I can see where like a quick control could be helpful, but it doesn't look like it supports the quick controls, but I'll pass it along as a feature request. All right, so DaVinci Girl asks, is Spectral Layers now a bit more stable? So yeah, it's been working really well. I think people have been very impressed with the new release. All right, so we see Peter Ramian says, this week I went in for some nuclear imaging scans. For the next few days, I'll be radioactive. Any way to use the power to trigger MIDI events in Cubase? Probably, hopefully, it could use maybe power your mind to create great new things in Cubase. We hope everything's well, and hope all your tests and scans are good. All right. So we see from Alex, hi Greg, my Halion 7 window refuses to open. The piano icon remains blackened. Other instruments work fine. Okay. So let's see if, so I'll add a Halion 7 here. Okay. All right, so let's say I have my Halion 7 here. All right. So sometimes check to make sure, sometimes like if it opens up, maybe the Halion 7 is kind of like hanging out down here, and you open it up on the screen and you may not see it, or it's behind another window perhaps. So let's say if I have my full screen mixer, and you know, this is, let's say, on top of my Halion. Let me just, so if I come here, like let's say my mixer is on top and you open it up, so maybe there's another window that's on top. You could also maybe try going to the window menu, and from the window menu you probably see, okay, here's a window with Halion 7, and click there to see if it pops up. Because often, you know, programs like Cubase, we can have like a lot of windows, and windows can be on top of each other. And sometimes people will have 4 or 5 windows that are set to always on top. And with multiple windows set to be always on top, there could be conflicts of, some may get hidden. But let me know if you, when you come over here, and you go to the Halion 7, if you see it in a window menu and you see the Halion 7 kind of pop up there as an option when it's an open window. All right, Graham Witcher says only 53 likes so far. Hit the thumbs up. All right, so we see Will Human says, right, he can't even learn. Greg, thanks. I was just curious about the sampler control. Yeah, I'll make sure to mention that to the team. All right, so John Barry VU just says, Greg, in the track quick controls menu, there's a lot of sampler settings. Let's take a look there. Thanks, John, for pointing that out. So, all right, so let's see if when we go to our sampler control here. Okay, so let's come over. Let's say this is our sampler track. So let's try coming here to the track quick controls. Okay. So we'll do a lot of the different filters. Let's see. Let's see if we go into slice mode. Let's see if threshold. So we have glide time. Yeah, I don't see it listed as an available quick control option. Thanks for pointing that out, John. And see, Will Human just says he's been in and out of that list. All right, so we see from Alex says, thanks, I got that figured out. I changed user interface scaling to plus 25% and threw a bunch of windows on my other screens, of course, hidden where I wasn't expecting it. Yeah. All right, Jose-CXP says, is there a feature of EQ where we can edit separately left and right? So if we want to do an EQ where we EQ the left and right channels separately, we can just come over here. So one of the EQs that you have is your frequency EQ. So if we go to your frequency EQ, you have stereo, you have mid-side, but also left and right. So now when I go to, let's say, band 2, I could EQ my left channel and my right channel independently. So let's say, okay, and I could, again, come over here and say, okay, let's go to my right channel, and I'll put this on a track that's stereo. Sorry, let me just... So again, EQ frequency. I will we'll come over here. So let's say band 4. And now we say from stereo to left and right. And we could adjust, have independent cues and boosts. So we can just come right over here and be able to edit the right channel or the left channel completely independently of each other. So, and that's just one band of EQ. And we have another band. So let's say if we go to band 5, we could make this mid inside. So I could have a different EQ. So if I wanted to boost the vocals in the mid range, I could give it a little bump, but take the reverb and make it a little darker or brighter on the sides. So you can just come over here. So each of the bands here could be stereo, left, right, or mid side. All right, so we see Jeremy Spencer. Hi, Greg. Is Steinberg going to create its own native Cubase plugin for streaming so I don't have to use third party and greatly improve this in general on their features roadmap? So Steinberg does have a program. It's a free download called MixKey. So I was just using this, helping a friend remotely mix a project for him. And what MixKey will allow you to do is you could open up like your different sources. So you have a source pool here. So you could just come over and say, okay, I could have my Cubase audio that goes right out of here. I could have, like if I wanted to talk with a microphone from my web camera, I can just simply have that set up. So we set your applications. So if I have a web browser open, so let's say we go to, and we want to come over and just run, let's say, she's funny. Anyway, so now I could come over here and we see from our source pool, okay, I could have my web browser and we just add that as a source. So I could have different volume levels. So now what I could do is when I go to a tool like Zoom, I would just set the audio output. So we can think of that as like a software mixer. And when you go into your settings here, we could just choose to, when we go into your audio, you would just set the output here to your microphone directly to MixKey. And now all of your audio gets routed to MixKey. And then so you could be communicating separately. You could have your Cubase audio going. You could play another example from your web browser, or other programs can all show up here. And then you just simply use that as a streaming. So it works really well. And again, it's free to use. I was just doing like remote mixing for a client, and just, I was, did a Zoom screen share, and I was able to do all, drive his program and hear it very clearly on my studio monitors and speakers. So check out MixKey if you haven't played around with that already. And that will give you some great results. All right. So we see from John Barry VU, do the stock plugins use OpenGL? So I believe they do. I'm not absolutely positive, but I'm pretty sure that they do. I believe it's taking advantage of like the OpenGL graphics drivers. So All right. All right. You see DaVinci Girl says, have fun, guys. Got to look at soccer or watch soccer. Enjoy the match. The U.S. had a disappointing loss, but Belgium played much better. All right, so we see from Alex on this issue of second screens, my editor windows or other instruments move to the back when I move to another screen, for example, where I watch this live session, even when I have always on top selected. So, the operating system can have different, so we can have always on top for within Cubase, but an always on top setting in Cubase, if I open up a web browser, the web browser may, may go to on top because, the on top settings for functions and windows in Cubase is within the Cubase environment, but it doesn't necessarily go on top of other programs that are currently active in your computer. So that would be kind of more at the operating system level. All right, so you see Jeremy Spencer says, thank you, Greg. I'll check out Mixkey. All right, so we see Frederick Childs says, hello, do you know if there will ever be a maintenance update for Cubase focused on improving CPU utilization? So, Cubase has really good CPU utilization. If you watch, there's a number of different tests. I think even on Mac OS, we outperform Apple's own program pretty significantly because, we take advantage of all of the efficiency cores and performance cores. There are different, every program will process audio in the same way. So if you have a number of plugins on a single track, that's being processed serially, that's only going to be able to be processed on a single track or a single CPU core. So, sometimes people will put 16 plugins on one track and realize, and say, Cubase doesn't have good CPU usage. You have to kind of allocate like instruments and effect plugins across like several different tracks so that they can be split up to use different CPU cores. And every program will work that way. A lot of programs won't utilize both performance and efficiency cores, and Cubase does that. So I think you would find that, Cubase has like very high quality utilization of CPUs. And, it's easy to say, I put 16 plugins on one track and my Cubase was crawling. And it's just how the nature of processing, like how audio processing is done on a computer. So, but every version, they're always doing little tweaks to get more and better and improved performance. But, they always do really well. And Jazzy has a great point of, and shared the video, which is really insightful on kind of audio performance versus CPU performance. All right, so we see, does Cubase Pro have everything you need for film scoring projects as is without any third-party additional software? Thank you. So all the functionality will be there. You get an orchestral library. It's not, called Iconica Sketch. Iconica Sketch is a great library. You can obviously invest in more extensive libraries that will give you more articulations and be able to, more miking positions. Iconica Sketch is a scaled down version. I would say that all the tools that you need for composing will be there, but most film composers will, utilize a collection of third-party sample libraries for orchestral stuff and other VST instruments and still use all those within the Cubase environment. I would say for your audio processing plugins, where you're exporting all your workflows, that there's no other third-party tool that's really needed for your scoring projects that's not found in Cubase. So we see from Alex, do you find the Korg Nano too flimsy and prone to breaking? I'm thinking of getting one. Thanks. I found it to be really good. I even have one where I accidentally spilled water into it a couple of times. And one of the sliders kind of went after the third time my cat knocked over a glass of water onto my Nano key control. But I think it's pretty robust. I have no complaints on the build quality on a Korg Nano control. So I would say that the build quality is pretty good with that. All right, so let me check. See, I think we have one other question that was mailed in. Thanks for all the great questions. You could always mail questions to clubcubase@steinberg.de. Okay. Okay, so we see this question about kind of free warping. All right, let me just open up a quick example project here. Okay, so the question is, I'm still struggling with the issue of Cubase using free warp tool for aligning audio directly in the project window. After bounce and or either render in place or flatten real-time processing, some of the aligned warp markers do not stay in a position I previously defined. This happens in different tracks, audio events, or track versions, and it happens only in some parts of the audio files. All right, so let's say if I'm here and I'm doing like warp editing. So I will come over here. Let's go to our free warp tool, and I'm going to come right over here, say, okay, let's place some warp markers along the content here. All right, now you can see that we have different grid lines that are already kind of, when we look at it here. All right, so let's say I've now done some free warping. Now, free warping, if you're not familiar with it, if you have an anchor point before or after, we can just change the position, the rhythmic position of notes. So if you're aligning different elements, so we have the warp markers that are assigned to this file. And let's say I'm going to come over here and let's split this. So we go to my free warp tool, and I can still see my free warp markers. Okay, now if I render this in place, I think that the free warp markers are going to be with the original file and not with my rendered file. So let's say we render in place. I'll just go ahead and move some more of these to make it more obvious. Okay, so even now if I bounce selection, so I go to my audio, let's just choose bounce selection. I'm going to say replace events. I'll say don't ask again. All right, so now when I come over here to my warp tools, it's a new audio file. So those warp tools aren't really preserved. And I think that maybe what you're seeing, so we see kind of the grid lines, but we also see kind of hit points. But these hit points probably haven't been converted into warp markers. So if you're, so when you do this, I think that you'd have to kind of set up the warp markers independently again, because it is a new audio file. So, if you don't see the warp markers after rendering, flattening a file, it's because at that point it's a new audio file and those warp markers are with the previous audio file. All right, let's go back. Some live questions. You see, Alex says, well, if it passed the cat test, then I'll buy it. Yeah, my cat walks across my Nano Control a couple times a week. So. Sable says, Greg, you're breaking the #1 rule of no liquids around electronics. That's one demerit. Well deserved. So, but I do like to have my glass of water near me, like while I'm working. So I usually try to put it on a separate little desk area, like a little leaf that pulls out so it doesn't get so involved. But my Nano Control has been a victim a couple times. So I should be better. I'm too used to the software world. All right, let's see if we have more questions that come in. I know there's usually about a 20-second delay from when I speak to when you guys hear. We'll see if more questions sneak in. And again, we do these live streams on Tuesdays and Fridays starting at 1 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. All right, so we have Estes family. Let's see, is this Chris Estes' daughter? Says, hi, Greg. Have there been any significant updates done for the Yamaha fader controller yet? So I think that there were some updates for the Yamaha CC1, which is like a single fader. I don't have it anymore. I kind of sent most of my Yamaha gear back. But I think that there was a software update to make the Stream Deck buttons work more. But let me know if it's the Yamaha CC1 driver, like the Yamaha CC1 unit, which is kind of like the single fader with 12 like Stream Deck buttons on it. But there was kind of a minor there was an update for that. So yes, the CC1. Thanks for the clarification. All right, we'll see if there's other questions that pop in. I'm utilizing my new live streaming setup with a new computer and had to switch out audio mixers or interfaces. So it seems like everything worked well. Let me know if the sound was okay for people. It's a new setup for me. But glad that everything seemed to go smoothly. All right, we'll give it a little more time. All right, so we see Bratman Studios says, is there a current discount on Spectral Layers? So I don't think that there's a current discount. I think that there was a quick discount right before the release, but there will be sales promotions kind of cycling in and out throughout the year. So generally every month there's different sales promotions going on. All right, so we see from Klaus, just says it works fine. Thanks for letting me know. It's a lot of little things to get installed to make it all work smoothly. So thanks for the feedback, Klaus. All right. See, Bratman Studios says, you still on the Mac? So yeah, I got a new M5 Mac. I had to send my previous Mac back to Yamaha in the US. And Steinberg got me a newer Mac. Very generous from both companies. All right, we'll give it another minute and see if we have any other questions. If not, we will go ahead and wrap up a little early. All right. All right, so Michael Team says, sounds great, Greg. Thanks. All right, so I think we are officially out of questions. I want to thank everyone for being on the live stream. We'll be back on, okay, so I think we have maybe another question come in. It says, I've been toggling between Fender Pro Studio and Cubase Pro. I was wondering if there's an option to outline an entire track in red as you're recording in Cubase. So like as you are recording in Cubase, I think the whole track is red. So let's come over here. I'll just So like as we do this, the whole track area here turns red by default. So the tracks themselves will remain the same colors, but like the track headings. So if I come over here, we select all those tracks, you can clearly see which tracks are in record here. A lot of times people will have very specific colors set up for their drums, for vocals, and they don't want that to change, but they want a clear distinction that the particular colors are are red, indicating that it is being recorded. So if I pop out of record, you can just see those tracks turn red. Okay, so we see, and Frederick, thanks for joining us today. And we hope that you spend more time with your Cubase, and we're here every Tuesday and Friday helping you out. All right, so we see Capital Razor just says, thanks, Greg, as well as Alex says, thanks for your time. John Costigan has to tend to his garden now. He says his gardener has been deported to North Chicago. All right. All right, so we see from Frederick Child says, thank you for your time. Great session. All right. Okay, so I think we're now out of questions. We've given our 15 seconds. And if no other questions pop in, we'll wrap up. All right, give it just a little more time. Okay, we see Pablo has a gig on Friday. All right, you see Gerald Ely says, great stuff, great, lots to replay, have a great week. Okay, so I think we are out of questions. We'll go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank everyone for all the great questions. I hope that everyone has learned a new tip or trick. Questions can always be sent in advance to clubcubase@steinberg.de. We want everyone to stay safe and healthy, and we'll see everyone back on Friday. And with that, we will go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much, and goodbye.